Thank you, Alfred. May I have my first slide, please? Thank you. I will do some repetition of what you've heard, but just to set the scene of what the actual topic of my talk is. How to improve your own paper without even trying is my subtitle, because as I say, and I said, rather, knowing how to do peer review means that you know how, or you should know how to write a good paper yourself. So where's the...
No, Andy had that one. So this one. No,
this one. Okay. I'm sorry that many of you might not be able to see this citation, but it is from the 17th century, from the French literature, where they talked about the instructions that was given to physicians and surgeons as a book was given to them to proofread and to edit. And what he had asked for was that they should make it easier for scholars to track down the sources, and as a result, the comprehension of the text would be better and clearer. So you see that the idea of having somebody who is in the same field or in the same level, at the same level of knowledge, has been asked to give his opinion and to criticize the work. And this was something that was done, as I said before, many years ago. You have heard, and I will restate, that it is a system, peer review is a system by where research, or scientific paper, or research proposal is scrutinized by independent experts, and the functions are threefold. Technical, ensuring that the science is sound. Subjective, is the science interesting, important, or groundbreaking? Is it understandable? And I think the readability of a paper is something that has to be very severely criticized by the peer reviewer. And if he's too much involved in the subject, or if he's too much of an expert, sometimes this is a little bit difficult. The third function, once again, is educational. And I think that the criticisms that go back to the reader are essential to make him not only understand why his paper has been refused, if that is the case, but how he can improve his medical writing for the future. There are guidelines for referees to help you know how to do this. And British Journal of Surgery is was one journal that does publish such guidelines. And perhaps in the near future we could see such guidelines being published by surgical endoscopy. The review that you put forward, that you compose and send to the editor, should be compiled in a structured way. And these are just suggestions that I'm making. You want to comment on the scientific reliability, the originality. Sir Alfred has already talked about that. I think it's important to make sure that the author has stressed the importance to surgery and the advance of science that's in the paper. And you have to find that. It should be obvious, and it should be certainly in the introduction. You have to give an overall impression of the suitability to the readership. Whether we're talking about a worldwide readership, if the paper has aspects that are open to the general surgical population that's reading the paper or that is liable to read the paper, or are we talking to specialists? And the language has to be clear-cut for both of these populations. I'm sorry. The presentation also has to have a character of reader-friendliness. And one thing that I like to insist on when I teach medical writing is that very simple rules have to be abided to. And one of the most important rules is chronological order. Whatever you state in the introduction has to be in that same order all throughout the paper. You know that you like to vary when you say A, B, and C, and the next time you talk about B, A, and C, and then you talk about C, B, A, because it's literary speaking, it is something that is well appreciated. However, in scientific writing, this is not the best way to teach, and so this order has to be respected. You want to make sure that the illustrations that accompany the paper, first of all, relate to the topic, and second of all, are informative. A very important problem that all editors have and all peer reviewers have is the statistics. Now, either you have competence in that matter and you make a comment on that, or you do not. And I think one of the roles of peer reviewers is when they do have a paper where there are statistical problems or statistical results, that they say whether they have looked at them or not in order that the editor knows that they have reviewed them. If they don't have the competence, they should say so. Last but not least, ethical considerations, and we will hear a talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm going to go a little bit quick on 2 or 3 slides and to deal with what really makes a good reviewer. Well, there's really little information available. Some reviewers make a judgment about an article very early and then look for evidence to support that judgment. I think that is not the correct way to do. Others will be more measured and try to come to an evidence-based review assessment as to the quality of the article. And I think this is what we should be looking for. Now, are there any courses out there so that you, as a potential peer reviewer, can learn how to do this? Well, as So Alfred has said, this is the first of the, at least in our knowledge, to our knowledge, the first of the courses that I have ever seen in that respect, and a second one will be conducted during the EAES meeting in Geneva in June. Compensation for being a good reviewer is a very touchy topic. There is no money involved. The compensation can be self-rewarding. If I've made a good review, I feel good about that. And if I've made some criticisms, positive criticisms, I also feel good about that. The other compensation, however, is a little bit over that. And that would be that as a peer reviewer, you have contributed to the diffusion of sound knowledge. And I think we should all consider that as the major compensation of what we do as a reviewer. There have been some studies that have tried to look at what makes a good reviewer. And the results are that it's usually a junior academic status rather than a senior, because the senior either has the time or already has his reputation made and perhaps is sometimes a little bit too opinionated. The time spent being less than 4 hours. Now, this requires a little bit of definition. If you are taking more time to do that, and some people do take more time, I can say that I, for instance, never take less than 4 hours. But still, it is a landmark or a sort of a way of saying that it is well done. I personally think that it can be variable, and sometimes I can spend up to 10 hours reviewing a paper. I think it's important for a good reviewer to have a minimum of training in epidemiology and, not and or, statistics. I think it's very important that you understand the statistics and the epidemiology that goes into most scientific reports. Being a non-member of an editorial board is perhaps a way of getting away from some of the bias that might be connected to promoting that journal. So once again, the young people coming from good institutions, known to the editors as per a list of peer-reviewed publications that they have done themselves and with good methodological training. I think then I would conclude that it is something that has to be done with a lot of serious thinking, with a lot of time spent, because you have this very important role. And if you take this seriously, I think we will be very happy, everybody will be very happy that you have contributed to ensuring that science can progress, that diffusion is sound, and that there will be no false information perpetuated from one paper to another. I thank you for your attention.